Elena had gotten used to living in silence. It had been her shadow for so long, shaping her world in ways most people would never understand. She lost her hearing when she was just a teenager, a sudden, unexplained illness that took away one of her most precious senses. At first, it crushed her, made her feel alone. The world kept moving forward while she struggled to catch up, forcing her to grow tougher, stronger. Over time, she taught herself how to read lips, mastered sign language, and even built a successful career in business, right in the heart of New York City. She had achieved so much, but deep down, there was always a small part of her that missed the simple things, the sound of laughter, music, even the soft hum of life around her. Nathan, her husband of 6 years, had always been there for her, or so she thought. He spoke gently, made adjustments for her needs, always reminding her that being deaf didn't make her any less of a woman. Nathan had been her rock, her safe place in a world that sometimes felt too loud and far away. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but she had always believed their bond was unbreakable. Lately, though, something had changed. There were moments when Nathan would look at her with an expression she couldn't figure out, distant, cold, like he was somewhere else. His touch, once warm and full of love, now felt hollow, like it was just something he had to do. Elena pushed away the bad feelings, blaming it on stress, work, anything but the truth. She had no reason to question him, or so she thought. Even with all her success, there were times when Elena felt like a stranger in her own life. Social events were draining, conversations exhausting. Sometimes, it felt like she wasn't even there at all. But Nathan had always been the one thing she could cling to, her bridge to the world she couldn't fully touch. Now, with the chance to get surgery that could bring back her hearing, Elena felt a rare flicker of hope. Maybe, finally, she could hear everything she had missed for so long. She had no idea that the sound she was about to hear would tear her world apart. The day of the surgery came faster than she expected. Sitting in a cold hospital room at Mount Sinai Hospital, wearing a thin gown, she could feel her heart racing with excitement and fear. This was it, the moment she had dreamed about for years. She turned to Nathan, sitting beside her. His face was tight, unreadable. He squeezed her hand gently, but it felt stiff, rehearsed. "You're going to do great," he said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Elena wanted to believe him. She really did. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Elena nodded, forcing herself to trust Nathan's words instead of the little voice inside her head whispering that something wasn't right. As the anesthesia kicked in, her vision blurred. The last thing she saw before slipping under was Nathan's face, and for a brief, chilling second, she thought he looked trapped. When Elena woke up hours later, the room was silent. But the doctors smiled, telling her the surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital had gone well. They explained that her hearing would come back slowly, little by little, as her brain adjusted to the implant. They started testing her right away. At first, it was just a tiny sound, a soft beeping from the monitor nearby. Her heart jumped. It wasn't much, but after years of silence, it was everything. Tears flooded her eyes before she could even stop them. Nathan stood across the room, watching her. But strangely, there was no happiness in his eyes. Over the next few days, the sounds kept coming, messy and strange at first, but real. The soft whoosh of wind through the trees. The low hum of the fridge. The sound of her own breathing. It was beautiful and terrifying. At times, it was so much she wanted to cover her ears. But Elena stayed strong. She was determined to learn this new world. Nathan stayed close, acting like he was still her steady hand. But Elena noticed small things. When she talked, he seemed to choose his words too carefully, like he was hiding something. Then came the late-night phone calls, the sudden work emergencies, the way his whole body tensed when she asked simple questions. Something wasn't right. But Elena had no idea just how deep the cracks were running underneath her life. Coming back home after the surgery was like stepping into a different universe. Everything she once knew now felt strange. Every sound, the creak of the old wood floors, the loud ticking of the clock on the wall, even the way Nathan let out long heavy sighs, it all hit her like sharp little arrows. The world wasn't silent anymore. But maybe, just maybe, it had been better when it was. It was overwhelming, but also amazing. Elena spent hours just listening, soaking in every little sound she had missed for so many years. The gentle hum of traffic outside, the whir of the air conditioner, the soft buzz of her phone, everything was new and alive. But under all that excitement, a strange feeling grew inside her. A warning. Nathan felt different lately. Distant. Distracted. He was always glued to his phone, stepping into other rooms to take calls, coming back with a fake, tired smile. Elena tried to shake it off, telling herself it was nothing. But one evening, as she sat by the big window letting the soft sounds of New York City drift through the air, something happened that changed everything. She heard Nathan's voice, low, urgent, from the next room. And for the first time, she didn't have to guess what was being said. She could hear. Moving quietly, Elena crept closer to the door, heart hammering in her chest. She pressed her ear to the cool wood, listening carefully. "I told you we have to be careful," Nathan whispered. "She doesn't suspect anything yet." Then, a soft giggle. A woman's voice. Elena's stomach twisted painfully. Her hand gripped the doorframe as her whole body froze. Nathan kept talking, his tone sharper now. "Just be patient. We'll figure it out. She's still recovering." Then silence, and a soft, rushed goodbye. Elena stumbled backward, her hands shaking. For years, she had been trapped behind a wall of silence, trusting that Nathan was her one safe place. But now, with her hearing finally restored, she was beginning to see, and hear, the awful truth. Nathan had been lying to her all along. And the most terrifying part was, she had no idea just how deep the betrayal went. Elena sat frozen, her mind spinning. Nathan's whispered words, the soft giggle, they kept playing in her ears like a broken, cruel song she couldn't escape. She had trusted him with everything. She had believed he would never hurt her. But now, with each new sound sharpening around her, Elena realized, the silence had hidden more than just sounds. It had hidden lies. With every day that passed, Elena realized something heartbreaking. The silence she had lived with for so long had been a shield, keeping her safe from a truth too painful to face. Her body shook as she leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Who was that woman on the phone? How long had this been going on? Had it started before her surgery, or after? The questions swarmed her mind, each one slicing deeper than the last. She sat alone in the dim light of their apartment, watching as Nathan walked back into the room, his phone still clutched in his hand. His face was calm, almost too calm, like he had practiced hiding whatever he was feeling. "You okay?" he asked casually, barely glancing at her before tossing his phone onto the kitchen counter. The next morning, Elena went through the motions like everything was fine. She moved around their Manhattan apartment like a ghost, smiling when she had to, nodding when Nathan spoke. But inside, she was crumbling. She watched him carefully now, every move, every little tick he thought she wouldn't notice. The way he clutched his phone tighter when she entered the room. The way he suddenly had urgent work calls, needing to step outside. The way his fingers twitched when she asked him simple, innocent questions. Elena felt like a stranger in her own home. Like she was trapped in a play she never agreed to be part of. And then, late that afternoon, the truth hit her like a punch. She walked past their bedroom door and froze. Nathan's laptop sat open on the desk, the screen glowing faintly in the low light. A message thread was pulled up, and without even reading every word, Elena's heart stopped. It was a conversation between Nathan and Brielle, her sister. Elena's breath caught painfully in her chest as she stood there, her pulse thundering in her ears. She didn't need to read the entire thing to understand. She already knew. The words hit Elena like a slap across the face. "I miss you," the message from Nathan said, shining cruelly on the laptop screen. And right below it, Brielle's reply. "Soon, my love. Just be patient." Everything inside Elena shattered. Her fingers dug into the doorframe, and for a moment, her knees almost gave out. Brielle. Her own sister. The one person she had trusted almost as much as Nathan. The betrayal was so deep, so raw, that Elena actually forgot to breathe for a moment. Memories flashed through her mind. Brielle laughing with her at Thanksgiving, their late-night talks, the way Brielle always seemed so excited to be around Nathan. And now, it all made sense. It had been a lie. All of it. They had used her deafness as a weapon, whispering their ugly secrets while she sat there, completely unaware. Rage blazed through her veins. But Elena forced herself to stay still. Stay quiet. If she exploded now, she would lose the upper hand. She needed to be smart. She needed a plan. That night, Elena sat alone in the darkness of their Manhattan apartment, gripping the edge of their bed, tears pouring down her face. She had spent so many years believing that Nathan was her protector, that Brielle was her safe place. But the truth was crueler than anything she could have imagined. They hadn't just betrayed her as a wife. They had betrayed her as a sister too. And as the heartbreak turned into something colder, something sharper, Elena made herself a silent promise. They think I'm weak. They think I'll crumble. They have no idea who they're dealing with. In the days that followed, Elena became a ghost in her own home. She moved carefully, spoke only when she had to, smiled when it was expected. She pretended to be blind. But now, her silence wasn't helpless, it was a weapon. She watched everything. Every detail. The way Nathan gripped his phone tighter when she entered the room. The way Brielle's text messages always seemed to come at the same time each day. The way Nathan lied with such easy charm, thinking she wouldn't notice. Every fake laugh. Every excuse. Every little glance at his watch. They were weaving a web of lies around her. But they didn't know. Elena was already unraveling it. Even at work, she kept her distance but watched Brielle closely. They had always been close, at least, that's what Elena used to believe. But now, every time she looked at Brielle, all she could see was betrayal. And deep inside, Elena knew. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Every time Elena looked at her younger sister, all she could see was betrayal. Brielle acted like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't ripped apart the one person Elena had trusted enough to build a whole life with. She smiled without a care in the world, spoke with her usual fake confidence, completely unaware of the storm brewing just under Elena's calm face. Elena wanted to scream. She wanted to grab Brielle and shake her, demand answers, destroy that fake little world Brielle had created, the same way Brielle had destroyed hers. But Elena stayed quiet. The more Brielle believed Elena was still blind to the affair, the easier it would be to catch her slipping. Then one evening, the opportunity fell right into Elena's lap. Nathan had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he stepped into the shower. When it buzzed, Elena didn't even hesitate. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as she grabbed it, her fingers shaking as she unlocked the screen. The messages were all there. Hundreds of them. Words of love. Promises of a future together. Cruel, mocking jokes about how easy it had been to fool her. Elena fought the urge to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she made herself read every awful word, letting the full weight of the betrayal sink into her bones. She wasn't going to just confront them. No. She was going to destroy them. With a slow, deliberate hand, Elena placed the phone back exactly where Nathan had left it. A faint, cold smile curled at her lips. They thought they had outsmarted her. They thought her silence was weakness. They thought her hearing loss made her blind. They had no idea how wrong they were. Elena had always been patient. Always been careful. And now, she had every piece of evidence she needed. The war had begun. And she was ready to win. When Elena woke up the next morning, her world felt like a hollow shell. Her home, once filled with love, now felt fake, like it had been built out of thin paper and cheap lies. Every sound she heard, every footstep on the floor, every whispered phone call, every fake laugh, now carried a weight she couldn't ignore. For years, she had lived in silence, believing the love around her was real. Now she saw the truth clearly. She had been surrounded by lies. But Elena refused to let the betrayal crush her. If Nathan and Brielle thought she was going to fall apart, they didn't know her at all. She had survived worse. And this time, she wasn't just going to survive. She was going to win. Elena had rebuilt herself once before, and she knew she could do it again. But this time, she promised herself, she wouldn't be the one left broken. She spent her days quietly and carefully putting the pieces together. Every clue about Nathan and Brielle's affair was another brick in the foundation of her revenge. She studied their every move. Nathan's sudden, urgent meetings late at night. Brielle's perfectly timed business trips. The stolen glances, the sneaky smiles they thought nobody noticed. But Elena noticed. She wasn't blind anymore. She saw the way Brielle's eyes lingered just a second too long on Nathan when she thought no one was looking. The way Nathan stiffened whenever Elena casually mentioned Brielle during conversations. Elena trained herself to listen without reacting, storing every lie deep inside, like weapons she would one day unleash. And with each new discovery, her anger grew hotter, burning under her skin. Then one evening, her patience paid off. Nathan had left his laptop open while stepping into another room to take a call. For just a second, Elena hesitated. Then, with steady hands, she slid into the chair. Her fingers, cold against the keyboard, navigated through his files quickly. And there it was. A hidden folder called Future Plans. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside were messages between Nathan and Brielle, disgusting conversations plotting about her. They talked about her shares in the company, their plan to manipulate the board, and worst of all, how they looked forward to the day Elena would be out of the picture completely. Elena inhaled sharply, her fingers digging into the edge of the desk until her knuckles turned white. They weren't just betraying her emotionally. They were trying to erase her life's work. But if they thought they could take everything she had built without paying for it, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. For the first time in what felt like forever, Elena felt something new creeping into her chest. Control. The rage that had once almost drowned her was now sharpening into something far more dangerous. The rage that had once threatened to drown Elena had now turned into something sharper, cold, careful, and planned. She understood clearly now. She couldn't just confront them. Not yet. If she did, Nathan and Brielle would twist the story, make her seem crazy, irrational. They would keep playing their dirty little games in the dark. No. She had to be smarter. She had to make them believe they were safe, make them think they had already won. Only then could she strike in a way they would never see coming. So Elena began changing her behavior, little by little. Just enough to stay invisible. She smiled more, even laughed at Nathan's dry, half-hearted jokes. She acted distracted, busy with work, pretending she didn't notice when he disappeared for business emergencies with Brielle. With Brielle, Elena played the role of the clueless, trusting sister, asking about her life, nodding at her silly made-up stories. Brielle, always the arrogant one, relaxed. In fact, she started oversharing, dropping little clues, like how exhausting her work trips were. Trips Elena knew never even left New York City. Elena listened carefully, faking innocence, while inside she sharpened her next move. Then one evening, as Nathan rushed to get ready for yet another late-night meeting, Elena made a casual comment over dinner. "I've been thinking about updating my will," she said lightly, twirling her fork in her pasta. Nathan's hand clenched around his own fork, his movements suddenly stiff. He blinked, too slow, too cautious, before forcing a chuckle. And right then, Elena knew. He was just waiting. Waiting for her to break. Waiting for her to disappear quietly so they could take everything. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. Elena had spent her entire life surviving in a world that didn't make things easy for her. She was stronger than Nathan or Brielle ever gave her credit for. And soon, they would learn what happens when you betray someone with nothing left to lose. Elena perfected her act, slipping into the role of the sweet, oblivious wife with chilling ease. She welcomed Nathan home with warm smiles. She asked about his day with innocent curiosity. She even suggested they take a trip together once she was fully healed from her surgery. Nathan hesitated, eyeing her carefully. But in the end, he believed it. He needed her to stay blind. He needed her to stay quiet. So, he lowered his guard. Brielle was even easier to fool. She had always needed praise, always needed to feel smarter, better. Elena played right into that weakness. She told Brielle how much she admired her confidence, her independence. Brielle soaked it all in like a sponge, getting bolder, cockier, and walking herself straight into Elena's trap. Brielle no longer bothered to hide it. She found sneaky ways to touch Nathan when she thought Elena wasn't looking. She spoke more openly too, casually throwing in comments about how hard marriage was, hinting that Elena just didn't understand the sacrifices it took. And Elena just nodded, pretending to agree, playing the fool they had always believed her to be. But behind her calm smile, Elena was quietly gathering the final pieces of her plan. She had already planted seeds of doubt inside the company, making sure whispers about Nathan's shady business dealings reached the right people. She had built a careful digital trail, emails, voice recordings, financial statements, painting a clear, devastating picture of the betrayal. Soon, when the time was right, Elena would expose everything. And it would be brutal. It would be public. It would be final. For now though, she kept smiling, letting them live in their stolen little bubble of fake happiness. Because when she struck, they wouldn't even see it coming. Elena had always believed in patience, in quiet strength, in enduring whatever life threw at her. But as she pieced together the last threads of their betrayal, she realized something. Even patience has a breaking point. One night, Elena sat alone in her dimly lit office, her hands trembling as she flipped through the documents spread out before her. Solid proof that Nathan and Brielle weren't just planning to take her down, they had already started. Secret money transfers. Hidden board meetings. Manipulated contracts. They weren't just betraying her love. They were trying to erase her completely. The air felt heavy and sharp around her as she stared at the evidence. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about survival. The next morning, Elena moved through the house like nothing had changed. Nathan greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, asking if she had slept well. Elena smiled sweetly and nodded. But inside, she was boiling with rage. He had no idea she had spent the night mapping out his downfall, down to the very last detail. Every fake touch, every hollow smile from him, now felt like poison against her skin. Later that day, when Brielle called to invite her to lunch, Elena didn't hesitate. She agreed instantly. If her sister still thought Elena was blind and clueless, she was about to learn just how deep Elena's fury ran. Sitting across from Brielle at a cozy cafe in Midtown Manhattan, Elena watched her carefully. Brielle laughed easily, bragged about her latest business project, acting like she had nothing in the world to worry about. She was so wrapped up in herself, she didn't even notice how different Elena was now. Didn't notice the storm gathering behind Elena's calm eyes. And as Brielle sipped her overpriced latte, babbling on about her next big move, Elena sat back, quietly imagining the moment she would tear her sister's carefully built life to shreds. And when it happened, Brielle wouldn't have anywhere to hide. Elena had been too cautious before, too forgiving, too patient. That mistake had nearly cost her everything. Not this time. Over the next few days, Elena moved carefully, making sure every piece of her revenge was perfectly lined up. She reached out to old friends at the company, people who had once been loyal but had drifted away because of Nathan's lies. One by one, she started feeding them pieces of the truth. At first, they didn't want to believe it. Nathan had built such a shiny, polished image. But Elena had the receipts. Emails, documents, numbers that couldn't be ignored. And with each undeniable proof she dropped, cracks started forming in Nathan's empire. Meanwhile, she kept Brielle close, pretending everything was still fine. They went shopping together. Elena listened to her self-centered stories. She even fake confided about how stressed she was lately. And like the arrogant fool she was, Brielle lapped it all up. She even suggested a spa weekend for the two of them. Elena almost laughed out loud at the irony. Brielle, the same woman plotting to destroy her, was now offering her advice on self-care. But Elena just smiled. Because soon, Brielle would need far more than a spa weekend to fix what was coming. Brielle kept offering advice to Elena about how to heal, acting like she cared. And Elena just nodded along, pretending to be grateful, hiding the fire that burned hot just under her calm surface. At home, she kept playing the role of the loving, clueless wife. But behind the scenes, she was setting traps Nathan would never see coming. She rerouted important company emails, making sure anything critical went straight to her inbox instead of his. She set up an independent audit, knowing full well that Nathan's dirty secrets would never survive a real investigation. And as she sat next to him at dinner, watching him scroll carelessly through his phone, Elena felt a chilling realization settle inside her. Nathan had no idea he was already losing. Brielle was many things, vain, selfish, ambitious, but she wasn't completely stupid. At first, she had loved the secret game with Nathan. Sneaking around. Pulling strings. Feeling powerful while Elena remained blissfully unaware. But lately, something about Elena's calmness started to rattle Brielle. She had expected Elena to fall apart once the plan was in motion, expected to see cracks, tears, anger. Instead, Elena was too steady, too composed. And that made Brielle nervous. One evening, sitting together at a rooftop lounge in Midtown Manhattan, Brielle found herself watching Elena closely. The way Elena sat upright, poised. The small smirk that would flicker across her lips when Brielle thought she wasn't looking. Something had changed. Brielle tried to poke at her, casually mentioning Nathan, tossing in little jabs about how hard it must be to balance a marriage and a career. But Elena didn't even blink. She just sipped her wine and smiled, as if Brielle's words meant absolutely nothing. That's when the first real seed of fear planted itself deep in Brielle's chest. Had Elena figured everything out? Had she known all along? Later that night, Brielle called Nathan, her voice low and shaky. "She's different," she whispered. "I don't know how to explain it, but I think she's on to us." Nathan, arrogant as ever, just laughed it off. "You're being paranoid," he said. "Elena's never been good at hiding her feelings. If she knew, we'd know." But Brielle wasn't convinced. She had spent her whole life underestimating her sister. And for the first time, she started to wonder if that had been the biggest mistake she ever made. The next morning, Brielle showed up at the office earlier than usual, restless and anxious. She had access to some of Elena's files. Nathan had made sure of that. But something inside her told her to dig deeper. As she skimmed through the recent emails, her breath caught in her throat. Private audit meetings. Critical emails that were supposed to go to Nathan, rerouted instead. Her hands trembled slightly. The truth hit her like a punch. Elena wasn't just aware of their betrayal. She was fighting back. And if they didn't act fast, everything they had built, all their careful lies, would fall apart right before their eyes. Elena had expected Brielle to sense that something was wrong. But she hadn't expected her to spiral into panic so quickly. The very next day, Elena saw it, the shift in Brielle's behavior. Her smiles were forced. Her words came out sharp, defensive. She moved with a nervous edge, like someone trying desperately to hold onto something slipping through their fingers. Jessica, the master manipulator, was losing control. And Elena could see it. The fear in Brielle's eyes. The stiffness hiding behind her fake laughter. It only confirmed what Elena already knew. Brielle wasn't winning anymore. She was drowning. Nathan, on the other hand, stayed completely blind. He still strutted around like he had everything under control, still treated Elena like she was too soft, too naive to notice the storm building around them. He had no clue that Elena was already tearing down his world, brick by brick. Brielle, though, she knew. She had spent years manipulating people, twisting emotions to her advantage. But now she could feel it slipping away. That evening, when Elena returned home, she immediately sensed something was off. The air inside the house felt different, heavy, disturbed. Like someone had been there. Touching things they shouldn't have touched. Someone had been there. Someone had touched her things. Elena's laptop, which she always left closed on her desk, was slightly open. Her files, though looking untouched at first glance, felt out of place. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Brielle had searched her stuff. Elena clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay calm. If Brielle had gone through her things, it meant she was looking for proof. Proof that Elena knew the truth. But Brielle wouldn't find anything. Not yet. Elena had already planned for this. She had planted misleading documents and left just enough fake trails to confuse anyone snooping around. If Brielle wanted to play dirty, Elena would play smarter. And when the time came, Brielle wouldn't just regret betraying her. She would be terrified of the consequences. The next morning, Elena woke up with a new kind of clarity. She had spent weeks gathering evidence, acting like the clueless wife, letting Nathan and Brielle wrap themselves even tighter into their own lies. But now, it was time to stop watching. It was time to start pushing. If she wanted to break them completely, she needed to bait them. Make them feel safe. Make them believe they still had control. And when they fell, it would be devastating. She started with Nathan. Over breakfast, while he scrolled through his emails, Elena casually mentioned, "I heard the board's calling for a company audit." Nathan's hand tightened slightly around his coffee mug. His jaw flexed just a bit before he smoothed out his face and smiled. "An audit?" he asked, voice too casual. "That's unusual. What brought that on?" Elena shrugged, pretending she didn't care. "Routine stuff," she said, stirring her tea. "They just want to make sure everything's running right." But inside, she smiled. She saw the flicker of worry in Nathan's eyes, the way he already looked like he was calculating, scrambling to figure out what she knew. Good. Let him panic. Later that afternoon, Elena moved on to Brielle. She invited her sister out for lunch at a trendy cafe in Soho, playing the part of the loving, clueless big sister. She let Brielle ramble about her amazing business ideas, nodded as she bragged about new deals, pretending to hang on to every word. And then when Brielle finally paused to sip her wine, Elena leaned in slightly and said softly, "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately. About my future. And about the people I can really trust." She let the words hang there, heavy and sharp. Just like she expected, Brielle's fingers tensed around the glass. She let out a tight little laugh, but Elena saw the tension, the fear creeping into her eyes. Jessica knew. She just didn't know how much Elena knew. Back at the office, Elena stood in the grand conference room overlooking the glittering skyline of New York City, finalizing the last pieces of her plan. The upcoming shareholders' meeting would be her stage. The perfect moment to tear